Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm working on my family memories album for 2023 and I'm doing some photos for June. Now I'm doing a double page spread, but I'm going to start with the left side and I'm going to be using a sketch from the creative design team's 8.5 by 11 sketchbook. I'm loving using this book. It's making decisions really quick for me. I quite often love using 3x3 or square format photos. So I went through my photos and I found 3 of the best ones and I love this little grid here. I am rotating this a little bit and I am going to be making a couple of little changes. Primarily, as you can see here, this photo is a landscape photo. So I'm going to be changing this around so that my photo layouts will go in this sort of format across here instead of having a portrait. So when you're looking at sketches, you can look at them and make them work however you want. Because I've got 2 children and they're both June babies, I wanted them side by side at the top here, and then I've got another photo here and my journaling is going to go here. So it's fine to move things around on a sketch. I use these as a jumping off point, and I'm also thinking that I'm going to bring these 2 large mats in together and probably make them the same size. So I've gone ahead and I've done some cutting and a little bit of playing around, and I'm going to bring this one right up against the right edge and then tuck in my other elements and sort of layer them up like this so that they go across in this fashion. So I'm going to put this off to the side for reference and start adhering things down. Now my layout differs just a little bit from this one here. I just used a 12-inch sheet of this paper. I didn't want to cut into, I've got 2 more pieces of this and I wanted to keep those as 12 by 12s. So my photos are going to hang off the edge a little bit and I want to add some framing around the outside of this. So before I adhere these 2 photos down, I'm going to turn my Versamat over. Actually, I'm going to turn both of them over. I love working on this surface with the grid lines and then also the spongy side, which means I can stamp as well. It serves dual purpose. But I did want to point out that all of the Close to My Heart stamp sets do come with this foam piece in here. So if you don't have a Versamat yet and it's on your wish list to get, you can always use this foam. And if you have a really large, intricate stamp, you can double foam this up to give more of a sponge so that you're likely to have more success with larger stamps. And I'm going to do that very, very soon with this layout. I'm going to stamp a border, this little dot border, all the way around the outside. This is from a previous special. It's the Little Things and it's the mini album set. I purchased all of that set. I love all of these sorts of stamps and how they can be used on so many different layouts. They really are quite flexible, and I'm always looking for little borders and things like that to add little details. So when these specials come up, I tend to look at them and purchase them depending on what the stamp sets are. And if I think I'm going to be able to use that quite a bit for my scrapbooking layouts. So they don't have to be used for the mini album or the card kits or whatever. You can just do double duty with these. So I've stamped off and then I'm stamping on, and I'm using Harbour ink. Now you can see here, Harbour ink is a really gorgeous deep blue. It's one of my favourite colours, but this is a real denim wash type paper. So I wanted to tone this down a bit. You could actually do 3rd generation. So there's 1st, 2nd and 3rd if you wanted to, but for mine I'm just using 2nd generation ink, and I'm stamping all the way up the edge of this piece of paper. And because our blocks are clear, that means I can look through and get a fairly straight line with these. Now I'm just going to adjust this because I think I might need to go off the edge a little bit. I'm trying to work out how I can do this without getting my head in the camera, because I do like to have my head right over top when I'm doing something like this. So I've stopped here so that I can then bring this stamp to line up with the edge of that line there so that it all looks fairly cohesive. And I've put the piece of paper here so that when I get to the edge, I can just stamp straight down and not get ink on my Versamat to transfer to any other piece. So as always, I'm going to clean off my stamps after I've used them with my chamois. And then I'm going to put down the other photos, and you can see how this is just grounding those pieces there. I'm going to bring in another stamp set to use on these pages, and I'll bring in the right page in a moment when I finish putting this one together. This stamp set was from the recent album retreat that Close to My Heart did. And this is another thing that I look at with album retreats. I look at the exclusive items that are included. And I just loved all of the details, the fonts with memories and moments, and this house, a little buildable rainbow. All of these items on this stamp set I knew that I would get good value out of and use again and again. So I've got this For the Record stamp here that I've already pre-stamped. That's from here. And I'm going to place that there, and then I'm going to try and stamp around the outside edge of it with this one here. And this is where I'm going to bring in my extra layer of sponging, because I've got layers here. I'm going to move my photos away. I've already put this piece on a block. I'm going to use second generation Harbour again. And I'm always make sure that it's stamping how I want it to. And I'm going to put that around this edge here. So I'm leaving this there at the moment, just as a guide. And then stamping this down. Now I'm going over layers of paper here, so I may not get a perfect image, but that's okay. It's worked really, really well. I'm really happy with that. And then this is going to be popped up on foam tape. I was very lucky to be able to go to 2 weekends away scrapbooking in June. And that's what I'm going to write in that part there. So I'll adhere these photos down, and then I'm going to do a little bit more stamping on these pages. Whenever I'm adhering circles and things like that over top of little strips, this is a zip strip, I always make sure that it is joined up with something else rather than floating on its own. And one thing I wanted to mention with the zip strip, and I'm going to bring in the right page just to show you, I always pay attention to the pattern and where the cut is. When I went to adhere this down, to have this piece here on the outside edge here up against the white, it sort of got a bit lost. So I just made sure that the end pieces of the zip strip were in this toffee colour, and then the middle sections here are the more creamy colour that meet up in the middle, so that they don't get lost on a page and fade out to nothing. Now I've got a little tab here, and I've cut that from these stitched fancy brackets. So you can do all sorts of partial die cutting with leftover scraps and pieces like that. You'll see I've got a few more on here. I'm going to put another happy birthday over this side. I'm going to do some stamping around that. And I've used this to create some tabs so that I can adhere them behind photos, because with this family project that I'm doing, family memories project that I'm doing, they're photos from different locations. This was one retreat I went to, and we have 3 scrapbookers in the room, and I didn't take photos of all of us together, but I had the opportunity to stay a bit longer than they did. They had to leave a bit earlier. So I took over the space and had an extra night and got my Cricut out and used up their crafting area as well, and spread out and made some workshop kits up, which was really, really good to be able to do that somewhere all by myself with no interruptions whatsoever. And then on my way home, I stopped and took a photo. Beautiful winter sky here. So I just had to stop and take a photo of this to enjoy it. And then this was another retreat that I went to, and we had a theme night where we were supposed to wear melon, which is the colour of the year. That's actually expiring at the end of this month. So if you really love melon, you want to grab hold of that now. And Tracy gave me a melon flower. My jumper had a little bit of melon in it, but she gave me a flower, and I just put that on my glasses for the fun for tonight. So you can see I'm stamping across here in first and second generation, and I'm having the words split between the two. It didn't quite fit across the bit of this burlap paper or denim paper that I've got left, but I thought putting Enjoy Today across there would be extremely appropriate for that page. I'm going to put this left page aside and bring in my right page, and I've got photos of Lauren and Daniel under here. This happy birthday stamp is probably meant more for cards, but because I have 2 in the same month, I thought it would be a really good one to put onto a layout, and it's currently available in the core catalogue. So I'll put links to everything that I'm using below so that you can check it out. I'm going to bring back in my double foam, and that's to help with all these layers of the cardstock. And I'm going to use this circle stamp here. I'm also going to do that in second generation. I want to make sure that it's stamping correctly, and it's got a little bit of texture in it. I've got a little bit of a mark down on this. You can see that through there. Might have to use my fingernail to get that off. So it's always a good idea to stamp off before you go onto a project, especially when it's a scrapbooking layout that you've already got lots of layers on. Oh, I always get nervous about doing this, especially when I've pretty much done the most part of the work on it. So here we go, straight down. And if you get variations in tones with the inks because you've stamped off before, that's okay. I really love how that looks. I actually love that it's a bit of a distressed look. I have some other layers that I want to put on this with stamping, and I'm also going to continue with Enjoy Today going across there. I just brought that in so I know that I finished with second generation. So this can be first, then second, until I get to about where this circle is. So move that off to the side just a little bit. I'm going to continue that along. I think that just adds a fun little border strip to it. So borders don't necessarily have to be border stamps. They can be words as well, or floral elements, or stars. You can make your own borders up. So I've got some thin 3D foam tape here, so it's not too high. I'm thinking about bringing Love this in as well. But what I'm going to do, I've got a photo of Daniel and Lauren here. You can see I've used those tabs again. I think I might put that across the middle there. And I've got another stamp from this same album retreat one that says Story of Your Day. I think I'm going to use first generation with this so that it stands out against the other second generation stamping. So positioning of this circle here, I make sure that the words are going to be going across where the zip strip is. So in the middle of where the zip strip is. So I've got that nice and straight. I'm going to put my inks, oh no, I'm not going to put my inks away because I haven't done my month yet. So one thing I wanted to point out with this is I've got a hidden journaling spot. I've used that same stitched fancy brackets, and I've used the same pattern paper for all of these tab elements. So when I've put my adhesive down, I have shown this in another video, I've got my adhesive running here, across here to create a stopper, and back up this side. I haven't used foam tape on this one at all. And this is going to be where most of my journaling is going to go. I am going to do a little bit on here as well, and that will have dates and places and things like that on it. But the actual story I'm going to put on this card here, and I'm going to use a clear shipping label to type it up and put that on because I always fit more on there. But I want to put June across this part here. And you probably know by now, if you've been watching, I'm using the Havana alphabet all the way through. And I've already got these off on blocks here, ready to go. I love doing this and having enough blocks to be able to put all my letters on. I am going to start, though, with the E because I want to build it back this way. I'm going to turn this sideways and stamp this down. So I've got to make sure I pick up the right letter because U and N look a little bit similar sometimes. So always ink up well. Don't rush the process. Pick your block up cleanly. I nearly dropped it back down again there. I love that we have blocks that have a little indent here because it just makes things, when you put your letters on and you stamp them in the orientation, it's so easy to hold that. It's harder to hold a straight up and down edge. It's much easier to hold these with the little indentations with your fingers. And then I just need the J. So this one here, you can see the indentations are like this, so it fits really comfortably into your hand and onto your fingers. So I love how that works. So I'm just going to clean everything up and then I'll bring in the left page. I love how this has come together so quickly and so easily using the sketch. As I said before, I'll have a link for everything that I've used below, including a link for the sketchbook. And I'm really pleased with how this stamping worked over the several layers of cardstock here. I did have a question on a previous video with scrapbooking as to whether or not I build back to back. with my layout. So what that would mean is that I would have the previous page built straight onto this, but it really all depends on how the pages are flowing. So I'm just going to bring in my book that I'm doing for this. Now for July, I wanted to have a white base. So that meant that if I was going to build this back to back, I could have trimmed it down so that the previous page had a piece of the shortbread showing, which would have worked quite well for here, but I just wanted a nice crisp white edge around all of this and some white space so that my eyes are drawn into the photos. I didn't want to fill this up too much. So in this case, it wouldn't have worked building back to back on this. But if you are just using white as your basis all the way through, you can definitely build back to back on your layouts. You don't have to start a fresh page every time. But as I said, it all just depends on what the colorway is behind here and whether that's going to work with your next layout. I hope you enjoyed watching me put this together, and I'm really wanting to get to July pretty quickly before the end of August happens. And let me know in the comments below if you like working with an 8.5 by 11 or if you're a traditional 12 by 12 scrapbooker. Personally, I love this size. I do quite a lot of projects in this, but I also love creating 12 by 12 layouts and enjoy working in 6 by 8 and 4 by 4 formats as well. So I'd love to hear from you what format you love to work with the most. Once again, thank you so much for watching. As always, happy crafting and bye for now.